You've lost your damn mind, Maya. You just stole a $3 million Ferrari. Charles Grayson's voice thundered through the hospital corridor like a judge's gavel cracking against the air. He stormed in, gray hair slicked back, jaw clenched tight, tailored suit flawless as always, except now his composure was gone. In its place was fire, fury, and something colder, entitlement. Maya Williams stood frozen, wrists shackled behind her back, breath ragged, chest still heaving from the drive that might have saved a life, but cost her everything else. Her dark blue scrubs were soaked with sweat, and Elena's faint traces of vomit. Her eyes, bloodshot from tears and fear, stayed locked on the double doors leading to the trauma room. Charles didn't notice her gaze. He didn't ask how the child was doing. His eyes, wild and sharp, were fixed solely on her. "My car," he shouted, slamming a palm against the wall beside him. "Do you have any idea what you've done to it?" Maya started, barely above a whisper. "You scratched the rear quarter panel. You blew out the suspension on the left side and the front splitter. Do you know what carbon fiber like that costs?" Maya's mouth parted. She swallowed hard. She wasn't breathing, sir. There wasn't time. You had a dozen other options. Call security. Wait for the paramedics, he barked. But no, you had to take my Ferrari as if it was yours to touch. You raced through the streets like a maniac and now look at it. "I called 911, Maya said softly. "They said it would take 14 minutes. She wasn't going to make it that long." "That's not your call to make," he snapped, stepping closer, his finger stabbing the air in front of her. "You're a damn maid, Maya, a helper. You're not a doctor. You're not a mother. You're not family." The corridor fell into tense silence. The officer behind Maya shifted uncomfortably. A nurse behind the desk lowered her pen. Maya's voice trembled but didn't break. "She's sick and she couldn't breathe." Charles scoffed. "What the hell do you know about responsibility, Maya? You just totaled a custom-engineered hypercar because what? Your emotions took over." "Sir." A voice cut in gently from behind the ER physician, clipboard in hand, his lab coat smudged with a trace of blood. Charles ignored him. "She'll be in surgery for days now." "And for what? A carjacking charge?" "I should press charges tonight." The doctor cleared his throat firmer now. "Mr. Grayson, your daughter's alive because of this woman." Charles finally turned toward him as if noticing the doctor for the first time. If she had arrived 2 or 3 minutes later, the doctor said calmly, your daughter likely would have suffered permanent brain damage or worse. Whoever drove her here, they did it just in time. The silence that followed was heavy. No gasps, no drama. Just wait. Charles stared at the doctor, then back at Maya. But the fire in his face didn't cool. "She destroyed my car," he said flatly. "That was the only one of its kind on the East Coast. And that little girl," Maya said quietly, "is the only one of her kind in the world, too." Charles said nothing. His lips pressed into a tight line. Without another word, he turned and disappeared behind the trauma doors where Elena lay. The officer behind Maya finally exhaled. We'll need your statement soon, ma'am." Mia nodded, not to him, but toward the door toward Elena. Her shoulders sagged as her knees trembled beneath her. Not from guilt, not from fear, but from relief. Elena was alive. That's what mattered. Even if no one else saw it yet. If you were touched by Mia's quiet courage, give her a like and leave a comment to let us know where you're watching from. Who knows? Someone nearby might be watching with you. Brought to you by BUP Stories. 3 days earlier, the Grayson estate was as quiet as a cathedral after midnight. Morning light filtered through 2-story windows, casting golden lines across polished marble floors and crystal chandeliers. It was the kind of house that made people whisper without knowing why. Too clean, too perfect, too hollow. Maya Williams moved quietly through the main hallway, carrying a laundry basket filled with Elena's dresses, all ironed, color-coded, folded. She had learned the order. Whites on top, pastels in the middle, darks on the bottom. The housekeeper before her had been fired for getting it wrong. That woman had lasted 2 months. Maya had survived nearly 4 years. She passed the grand piano untouched since Mrs. Grayson's funeral and headed toward the back staircase. Her sneakers made no sound on the rug. Her hands practiced in silence. That was the rule of the house. Be present, but invisible, efficient, not emotional, valuable, not vocal. Elena. She heard from upstairs a high, sweet call. Where's my pink bunny dress? Maya smiled and called back. Coming right up, Miss Sunshine. Elena Grayson was the only soul in the house who saw Maya as more than background. At 6 years old, she had the open heart of a child untouched by the filters of wealth and power. When Mia braided her hair, Elena would ask her to sing. When Maya cleaned her room, Elena followed her around like a shadow. It wasn't supposed to be that way. Staff weren't encouraged to form attachments. But some bonds grow in the silence between bedtime stories and emergency asthma attacks. Between 2 lives that have both known sudden loss, Elena had lost her mother to a rare seizure disorder just before her 5th birthday. Maya had lost hers to a heart attack in a public hospital waiting room where no one came fast enough. Both losses had occurred in silence, unspoken, unhealed. That morning, Maya had arrived earlier than usual. Something in her gut told her to call it instinct. Or maybe it was the way Elena had looked the night before, paler than usual, slower to smile, her energy muted. No one else noticed. Not the nannies who rotated in shifts. Not Mr. Grayson, who was constantly on the phone, walking through the house like a man with no time for children or grief. Maya noticed. She always noticed. Downstairs in the kitchen, the chef had left Elena's breakfast tray untouched. Organic Greek yogurt, steel-cut oats, half a grapefruit cut without sugar by request. Maya added a single slice of cinnamon toast with butter and sugar. She knew it wasn't in the dietary plan. She also knew it was Elena's favorite. A comfort. She brought the tray upstairs. Elena, breakfast. The girl didn't respond. Maya pushed the door open gently. The lights were off, curtains drawn, the air still. Elena lay curled on the edge of the bed, arms wrapped around the pink bunny dress like a security blanket. Her skin looked gray, lips pale, forehead damp with sweat. Elena. Maya's voice sharpened. She set the tray down, crossed the room in seconds. Elena opened her eyes, blinked slowly. Mama Maya, my tummy hurts. Her voice was faint. Maya crouched down and felt her forehead burning. You're okay, baby, she whispered. Let's get you cooled down. She scooped the girl into her arms and carried her into the adjoining bathroom, wet a cloth, dabbed her face. The child shivered, then groaned, her body going rigid, then her eyes rolled back. Elena, no answer. Elena, baby, stay with me. Mia's voice trembled. She laid the girl on the cool bathroom tiles, tilted her head gently, checked her airway. No movement. The panic was instant and full. Maya ran back to the hallway and pressed the wall intercom. Nothing. The maintenance crew had been working on the house's internal systems all week. The panel was unlit. Dead. She ran back to the bedroom, grabbed her cell from her tote bag, battery dead. She cursed under her breath. Grabbed the landline. The dispatcher answered quickly, Maya explained. The voice on the other end was calm but slow. Ma'am, emergency units are 10 to 14 minutes out. Stay on the line. 14 minutes. She looked down at Elena again, her tiny chest barely moved. Her skin now bluish near the lips. 14 minutes was too long. Maya thought fast. The staff SUV was parked at the back, but the keys were kept in the guard booth, and there was no time to search. She remembered the garage, the Ferrari, always parked in the center like a sculpture on display. Mr. Grayson's crown jewel, untouched by staff. She ran down the stairs through the corridor out to the garage. The doors opened automatically with her ID swipe. The car sat there, low, red, almost humming with threat. The key fob glinted under the glass. She smashed the case with a fire extinguisher. The alarm didn't go off. She didn't hesitate. She grabbed the key, opened the door, ran back, picked up Elena, wrapped her in a blanket, carried her to the car. "Hold on, baby," she whispered as she secured the girl in the passenger seat. "Don't you dare leave me." She started the engine. The growl of the Ferrari split the silence of the Grayson estate. Maya punched the accelerator and didn't look back. Through gates, through traffic, through fear, she didn't drive that car like a thief. She drove it like a mother. Brought to you by BUP Stories. The Ferrari tore through the leafy avenues of West Haven like a streak of red lightning, its engine screaming, tires gripping the pavement with every turn. Maya gripped the steering wheel with both hands, her knuckles white, eyes darting between the road ahead and the pale, motionless child in the passenger seat. "Stay with me, baby. Please, Elena, just hold on," she whispered. Her voice thick with panic and prayer. Elena's head lolled to the side, her chest rising so faintly it was nearly imperceptible. Maya reached out with one hand at a red light, pressing two fingers gently to the girl's neck, a pulse weak, fluttering, but there. The light was still red. Maya looked both ways, empty streets, suburban stillness. Then without another second of hesitation, she slammed the gas. The tires squealed. Horns blared behind her. "Come on, come on, come on," she muttered. Her foot stayed heavy on the accelerator as the trees blurred by. Each second felt stolen. Each intersection a gamble. Somewhere behind her, she heard its sirens. She didn't look back. They must have picked her up on traffic cameras. The Ferrari was too distinct, too loud, too fast not to draw attention. But she couldn't stop now. She wouldn't. Not until Elena was safe. A squad car appeared in the rear-view mirror. Siren lights flashing. "Demit. Maya." He sat. She flicked on her emergency flashers and waved one hand out the window, signaling toward the hospital exit a mile ahead. She wasn't trying to flee. She was trying to save. Another red light. She didn't brake. The car bounced violently over a dip in the road, scraping the undercarriage as it landed. Elena shifted in her seatbelt. Maya reached across instinctively, adjusting the girl's head. "I've got you, sweet girl. Just hang on." The hospital's white and blue sign finally came into view. "St. Mary's Regional Medical Center, Emergency Entrance, 2. Maya's breath caught. Her chest ached with tension. Her eyes burned from holding back tears. But the worst part, the most agonizing weight pressing on her soul was the fear that none of this would matter, that she might pull up to the ER, jump out screaming, and find out she was already too late. The Ferrari roared up the ramp toward the emergency lane. Orderlies leapt back in shock as the car skidded to a halt just inches from the sliding glass doors. A nurse on smoke break dropped her coffee cup and ran. Maya didn't even put the car in park. She jumped out, tore open the passenger door, and pulled Elena into her arms. "Help! She's not breathing. Help!" Her voice cracked with urgency, echoing across the asphalt. The ER doors slid open, and a team of nurses and a doctor rushed out with a gurney. "What happened?" one shouted. "She just collapsed, seizure." "Maybe, I didn't know what else to do." They took the child from her arms and laid her flat. An oxygen mask went over Elena's face while someone began chest compressions. Another nurse jabbed a needle into her tiny arm. Orders flew like arrows. "Get a line in. Push 0.1 of epi. We're losing her." Maya stood frozen for a split second, staring as Elena's small body was wheeled away, surrounded by white coats in panic. Then hands grabbed her shoulders. "Ma'am, step back." A police officer, young, pale, clearly rattled. "We need to talk to you right now. You just ran 5 red lights in a stolen car." Maya turned slowly. Her eyes didn't show. Truncated 74,098 characters, tals. The air smelled of blossoms. Charles spoke first. "You were invisible once, not because you were lesser, but because no one made room for you. Maya glanced at him quietly. Will you trust me to carry Rachel's legacy forward through every step you take? She felt the weight and wonder in the offer. She met his gaze deliberately. Yes, she said softly. Not for her, not for the picture, but because what started here deserves to keep growing. He draped an arm around her shoulders as they walked. That night, Maya sat at the window where the magnolia branches reached into the sky. Stars drifted above like fallen petals, pinpricks of distant clarity. Elena slept softly beside her, blanket curled around her, face unlined by worry. Maya pulled out her notebook. She wrote, "Kindness once given can sew wounds that time alone cannot heal. It can sit in memory, waiting until the moment arrives when we're ready to receive and ready to return it. And that moment can become a constellation." She pressed her lips against Elena's forehead. From shadows, we have risen, not because we demanded to be seen, but because we remembered how to be kind. Maya closed the notebook, the photograph beside it, pressed petals between pages. She exhaled a long breath. The justice she had begun to weave was no longer silent. It glimmered in brass voices, candle-lit faces, and the eyes of a little girl who believed she was worth saving. Under magnolia and stars, and in the hush of a new kind of dawn, it felt real, and it was only just beginning. Autumn filtered back into the Grayson estate with quiet persistence. The magnolia trees once again bowed with buds not yet bloomed, promising another cycle of renewal. Maya stood at the edge of the courtyard where the garden's petals had once danced. Now, a small stone path led from the rose garden out into the community, a sidewalk created last spring in collaboration with local neighbors. It was more than landscape. It was a living bridge. Elena trailed behind her, clutching a basket of fallen chestnuts. She wore her school sweater and sneakers scuffed from play. Maya watched her collect each nut carefully as though gathering stars. When she slipped one into Maya's palm, she said, "This is ours, Mama." Maya, a promise of? Maya nodded and slipped the chestnut into her coat pocket. A promise? Yes. And the weight of what they carried now extended beyond estate borders. Inside the foundation's annex, Maya prepared for a keynote address. Tonight she would speak at West Haven University, a local gathering of educators, activists, and civic leaders who had invited her to discuss dignity and justice in invisible work. On a side table sat her notebook, now bulging with notes and sketches, a constellation of ideas. Next to it was the photograph of young Maya with Charles and Rachel, softly lit by a single lamp. Beneath the photo, a framed quote from James Baldwin's Open House. "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced." Her heartbeat thumped gently in her throat, but she took a breath, remembering every step, the hospital drive, the choir song, the scholarships, the petals and notebooks. Elena led the way from the car, tugging Maya by the hand. "You'll do great," she whispered. Mia smiled. "Only because of you." Inside the auditorium, the audience sat in rows of school colors, white shirts, and navy ties. At the front table, the mayor offered a warm nod as she took the podium. The projector displayed the foundation's emblem, a magnolia plant intertwined with a pair of open hands. Maya stepped up. The first slide showed a single chestnut. Promises gathered in darkness can become the seeds of change. "Oh," she spoke steadily. "Every chestnut begins hidden, buried beneath leaf litter, overlooked by the sun. But given warmth and care, it cracks open into a tree that can offer shade. That's how justice works. Not always in courtrooms or headlines, but in quiet acts that ripple outward." She paused as the audience absorbed the metaphor. "Today, I stand before you not as a maid, not as a caretaker, but as someone who learned that listening is action and visibility is a form of power. When a young black girl collapsed in my arms, I drove a Ferrari through red lights, but I carried something more fragile than that. I carried her life." Faces softened, eyes widened, a hush descended like clarity, but I also carried the weight of not being seen, of being the help. And so when I stood before you, I came with more than credentials. My story with me, and it demanded truth." She clicked the slide. Photographs of domestic workers in other households, their faces captured in candid smiles. Underneath each, not invisible, not replaceable. You are here tonight because someone believed you'd matter, instituted a scholarship, changed a policy, let someone bring voice here. Injustice is loud when denied, but justice is lasting when acknowledged. The audience murmured. A few nodded. A professor in the front row dabbed at her eyes. Afterward, questions came about fund structures, policy recommendations, community partnerships. Maya spoke with authenticity, not theoretical, but forged through lived experience. They asked, "How do you rebuild trust?" She said, "By following actions with accountability." When hurt is real, apology must be real and systems must change. When the session ended, people gathered around. A labor historian offered to co-author a paper. A dean asked to host a symposium. A local councilwoman shook her hand, promising support to expand the foundation's reach into rural counties. Maya left the hall filled, her voice no longer just hers, but a mirror for many. At home, she found Charles on the patio bench beside the magnolia tree. He looked older in the flickering lantern light, but stronger. "You were magnificent," he said. Maya shook her head. "It wasn't me, it was us." He smiled faintly. "You gave others permission to claim space. That's profound." They sat together under the branches. Elena asked if I'd plant more chestnut trees, Maya said. "Good idea," Charles replied. "Well, plan that on the path out every few feet, a tree so children walking home from school see them. And remember, even buried things can grow." Mia glanced at him. "You're trying." He nodded. "I'm trying because someone once showed me what kindness could do when I didn't expect to see it again." She reached for his hand. It felt rooted. Later that night, as Elena slept between them, Maya pulled the notebook from the drawer. Chestnut-pocketed pages stood open. She began writing. "Injustice looks like silence. Justice sounds like song and it tastes like chestnuts gathered with care. It smells like magnolia and ministry." Every act of visibility, every recognition of labor becomes a constellation we can steer by. And tonight we begin planting seed trees along the path so no child walks home without knowing where they come from. She pressed the pen to leather cover and closed it. At the window, the magnolia branches glowed under street lamps. Leaves drifted softly like petals falling into quiet water. Outside, the path was visible now, lined with stones and budding chestnut trees. Elena murmured, half asleep. "Mama, yes, I want to be a gardener for your trees," Maya smiled, breath-catching. "Then come, gardener," she whispered, "because this path is ours." And as she turned off the lamp, the magnolia petals glimmered against the window pane. Brought to you by BUP Stories. In that hush, she believed fully. Constellations are created not only by light, but by those who remember to plant. Nebulous dawn light slipped across the Grayson estate one more time. Spring ragged at the edges of summer. Maya stood at the crest of the new chestnut-lined path. Shade trees aloft like sentinels of promise. Children from the neighborhood gathered at its edge, some in school uniforms, others in play clothes waiting for the first planting of the season. Among them, Elena held Mia's hand. Her smile a sunrise of confidence. Mia turned, taking in the scene. Families, staff, volunteers, and neighbors who had once been invisible now united. Charles stood beside her, sleeves rolled up, hands ready for dirt. The crowd hushed as she stepped forward. "Elena asked me to plant this seed for you all." Maya began, voice steady but tender. She handed the shovel to her daughter, who knelt at the prepared hole in the ground. "This chestnut tree isn't just a tree. It's a promise of growth rooted in our courage to care." Elena pressed the seed into soil softened with compost. She patted it gently, then looked up at Maya, glowing with wonder. Other children followed, each placing a seed. Chestnuts carried in small baskets by staff and community members, each offering a symbol of belonging. Maya watched the seeds buried, how they settled into earth as if awakening. How the path beneath them promised direction. And around her, people clapped in quiet blessing, not for spectacle, but for life given room to flourish. When the last seed was placed, Maya took the shovel back. She wiped her hands on her jeans, noticing the fine grain of earth clinging like memory. Charles handed her a cup of iced tea. She sipped, tasting sunlight. A neighbor approached an elderly woman who had once served at the estate decades ago. Her apron had long ago retired, but her eyes were still strong. She offered Mia a jar of honey she'd made to nourish what's growing. Maya accepted with tears she'd been saving for Justice. The gathering drifted into shared picnic blankets in the rose garden. Children ran weaving between chestnut saplings. Adults spoke softly about scholarships, training programs, and safe schedules. The staff laughed around steaming cups of coffee, camera-free, expectation-free. Here, dignity was just being. No proclamation necessary. Maya slipped away to the foundation office for a moment. She pulled the framed photograph of herself with young Charles and Rachel from the shelf. Below it read, "You were seen. Now see others." She traced the words with her finger, then replaced it gently and returned to the garden. As afternoon light softened, Charles joined her beneath the magnolia where the plaque bore her name. They stood in peaceful silence until Elena ran up, eyes bright. "Mama Maya, look." She pointed to a shoot, thin and eager, rising beside one of the newly planted saplings. "It's growing," Elena whispered. "Just like us." Maya knelt to brush Elena's hair. "Yes, baby. We're growing, too." Charles smiled quietly. "Watching. Because you gave them permission." She looked up because they mattered. Night came quietly, a velvet hush across the estate. Maya stepped into the living room, carrying her notebook and a single chestnut. She placed both on the coffee table. She flipped open to the final blank page and wrote, "We planted tonight not just seeds, but invitations for tomorrow's justice. May each future blossom remind us that seeing one another is the truest way to grow." She closed the notebook, heart calm. In the bedroom, Mia tucked Elena into bed once more. The child's eyes were soft with dreams. "Mama, yes. Will we come back here when the trees are tall?" Mia pressed a kiss to her temple. "Every spring until we're too old to bend down anymore." Elena smiled, drifting to sleep. Ma stayed in the doorway for a long minute, gaze drifting upward to the magnolia branches swaying outside in moonlight. Petals shimmered like stars caught in wind. She breathed in the promise of summer, of growth. She turned off the lamp. Later, Maya sat at her desk by the window. City lights gleamed beyond trees. She placed the chestnut beside her pen. She wrote finally. "Sometimes justice finds us not in courthouses, but in courtyards. It blooms through lullabies and driving through red lights when no one else can. It rises in brass fanfare and staff laughter at dawn. Tonight, as a child plants a seed under my name, I believe more deeply than ever that justice is not carved in stone. It is sown in soil, tended by hands brave enough to believe in tomorrow." She closed the notebook, pressing her palms to the grain of the cover, as if embracing a promise made whole. In the silence of the night, the estate slept beneath magnolia and chestnut buds, each growing slowly toward the sun, each carrying a quiet echo of light beyond the estate into every heart that had dared to look. And been seen. Brought to you by BUP Stories.